It's faded, baby.
So I just wanted to ask you a few questions about Africa. Um,
Aquaba, by the way.
that's what it pronounced.
Welcome to my home.
Oh, okay. Thank you. How was the transition, or how would be the transition for someone who wanted to migrate from wherever they are in the world to Africa?
Well, for me, I know I wanted to get. So I remember calling my mom and saying, "Look, I want a culture shock." And my mom was like, "No, you want a culture shock? We got Little Italy, we got Little China, you got Chinatown, like you get all the culture shock you want." I was like, "No." I told at the time I wanted to go to Zimbabwe.
Okay.
The plan was to go to Zimbabwe because I had a big following in Zimbabwe.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as I made plans to go to Zimbabwe, that's when Mugabe had stepped down, and they had like a civil unrest.
Okay.
A lot of my friends who owned radio stations and who were media, I couldn't hear from them. That really worried me. So I said, no, I'm going to Ghana. And I decided to take the chance to go to Ghana to help find my PhD topic.
Okay.
And I know I wanted to specialize in the slave trade and understand the slave trade from the African perspective, as well as the Caribbean American perspective as well. So for me, that was the reason why I went. When I first went to Africa, I felt like I wasn't worthy of being in Africa. Because it's like, this is Queen Mother. Like, I'm in my homeland. Like, I'm not worthy to be here. But, the more time I spent, the more I felt connected, more connected to myself. I was able to deal with a lot of generational traumas going back home to Ghana, and especially going on the trail. Because part of my research is to actually follow the trails from the northern area where they would capture people. And so I would follow the trail down to the northern parts of Ghana, Burkina Faso, down to the coast. And, hearing the stories that people, like family, I've heard stories that they try to save us. Like their family members would have been captured and other family members would follow the trail at night trying to figure out where they're going to and how they can help capture them. Okay. And some people, will not capture, get them back, save them. And some people were actually very successful. And unfortunately, a lot of people who went to go also got caught up in the trade themselves because they got caught trying to save their family members. Okay. So going through that, understanding that, and knowing that they tried to save us, it gives a totally different dynamic to the idea that
no one did anything.
No one wanted us. You know what I mean? And then working at Cape Coast Castle and I'm still working with them now actually, and working at Elmina Castle, it was very eye-opening, and it helped me once again to deal with the past. And not for me personally, but understanding that this is where my ancestors probably came through. Well, actually, my mother's DNA goes back to the Yoruba, Nigeria. So I had to go to Nigeria to really get the full healing. But just being on the continent alone was healing enough, and understanding that, even though we are 12% Akan, my mom was 12% Akan, I'm still touching roots and I'm still able to connect with my ancestors in some form or fashion. So moving there for me was not an option. You know where I'm coming from? Because it helped me heal. It helped me, because I think before going to Ghana, I was a very angry person. In many ways, I was always angry.
It's interesting because I wouldn't think you would be describing your life that you had,
Yeah, I know. But you be like, I was always angry at the system, always angry at how things were, frustrated. I find that now I'm a lot more relaxed. So yeah. But moving to Ghana for me and living like 6 months in Ghana out the year, I get to the point that if I'm away for too long, I have to go back home. I have to go back to Africa because I just feel it. It's like it's a certain unrest in me. Like now, I'd rather be in. I love Barbados. I've been here for 6 months. I love Barbados, but it's time for me to go back to Africa.
So is that you said that you feel connected and you were able to get rid of a lot of traumas. So besides the thought of no one did anything or no one wanted us, inverted commas, what were some other traumas that you thought that you had addressed?
that I addressed in Africa.
Mhm.
Well, generational for sure. Like there's a lot of like my family on my mother's side. The message that we got was that we're not worthy.
Mm.
We're not worthy to have good things. We're not worthy to be in the same space. We're not worthy to be present at the table. I have a seat at the table.
Mm.
You know, this
As
is
Black people.
as Black people. You know, and understanding being, I guess, my grandmother. It's amazing how my grandmother thought of herself as poor all these years. And she said to me, I remember last year I asked Grandma, what was the one message that society taught you in Barbados? And she says, if your family didn't have money or have a shop or have any kind of status, you weren't worthy of anything good. And I've seen her live her life in that mindset. And I've seen that mindset being passed on to me to a particular point. But I also understand, being the generation I come from, I wasn't accepting that mindset. You know, so for me, working at Def Jam, EMI Records, and especially the radio stations, oh goodness, forget it. My family were focused on, especially my father's side, on being lawyers, doctors, teachers, headmasters, headmistresses, that sort of thing. And like, how dare you choose radio? That's not...
You're breaking any mold.
Exactly. You know? So, yeah, it's just, so it taught me that the feelings of inequality, or the feelings of being not adequate enough are not my own. And they came from my grandmother. And pushing a little bit more on this, they came from my great-grandfather. And then from my great-great-grandmother. You get where I'm coming from? So I see, and I actually did my family history all the way back to 1750. I found my 6th-generation grandma. You got me? So I can only imagine, and she was an enslaved person on Beachy Head Plantation in Barbados and St. Philip. You know, so I can only imagine that mindset survived, you know, came from slavery, then came through colonialism, you know, to present day.
You mentioned about the castle. Those are like real castles or what?
I call them, they're really dungeons.
Okay.
They're really dungeons. They're places where they had a condemned cell, and they also have cells where basically holding pens. Dungeons where you will have up to 200, from 200 to maybe 1,000 people being held, you know, in captivity and not being able to really, you know, they're in captivity. Yeah, they're not free. So
you got into research. What was the catalyst for you getting into that type of research?
You know, when I was 13, and I was in junior high school. I remember asking a question of, well, what happened to Africa? And it was, oh, we don't teach courses or we don't have classes on Africa. Everything was on American history and European history. I'm like, okay, but what happened to Africa? And when I got to high school, it was the same thing. So when I got to high school, I actually held protests.
Oh, nice.
Oh yeah, no. I was an activist from the time I was a young child. Yeah, I held protests. And I remember I even held a protest at LIU, Long Island University, for the same thing. But in terms of high school, I was one of the first people to start an African Heritage Club. And we would have, I think, every Wednesday, and where I would, even myself, I didn't know much about Africa, but I made it a point to learn more about it. You know, I'm not going to lie to you. I failed a lot of classes because my attention was on Africa and to learn about it. And then I became part of ADAM, African Descendants Awareness Movement, where they would teach us about our heritage and who we are. And every Sunday or every other Sunday, we would go next to the Apollo Theater and we would feed the homeless. Okay. And it was through feeding the homeless I learned about why people chose and why some people ended up, you know, and some people, I would say, choose because they just wanted to be away from, they just did not know how to deal with society itself. Okay. So they just rather live on the streets and have, if it makes any sense, you know, it really opened my mind to mental health as well as to addiction and what people really, really go through. Yeah.
This might be a strange question, but how was the dating there, the dating pool, and in comparison, of course, to Barbados, as well as I've been told they love thick women down there, you know, they're treated like goddesses down there and stuff. So is there any truth to those myths as well?
Well, I will tell you this. Dating in Ghana for me was really hard. Because most people my age are already married.
Okay.
Most men, by the time they're 20, 25, are already married.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's, so it's kind of hard meeting someone in your 40s or your 30s. Also, being in your 40s, they believe that you should be married by that time, and it's hard. It's harder for older women to really date, but it's possible. Trust me, it's very, very possible. And yes, they love their thick women. They love their thick women. This is true. It's funny. Even my ex-boyfriend, who's Ghanaian, he messaged me the other day, and I put up a meme on my status. And it was about how skinny men love thick women, and he was like, "Yeah, that was true." I was like, "Yeah, I know who you're telling. He's skinny, and I'm fluffy." So yeah.
So like how in most cases, how Barbadian men. I mean, it's changing, but yeah, for the most cases, how Barbadian men go towards women. Is it the same over there, or do the women initiate relationships and conversation and different stuff first?
That's a good question. Most people I've dated in Africa, it was always through a connection to somebody else. So it's not like the men came up to me and said, like back in the day, the men would come up to me and say, "Hey, hey queen, you look gorgeous, da da da. Can I get your number, da da da." But that don't happen no more. I can tell you that don't happen no more. Anywho, so but speaking to my male friends, they tell me, yeah, that's done with, because the men are fed up and they tired. So they're like, yeah, we ain't approach you guys no more. If you want us, you gotta come for us, because we ain't come to you. Yeah, I'm like, okay, you wait there, because I ain't approaching nobody. Anywho.
But that's interesting. Well, here in Barbados, for the most part, I find that women are afraid to approach men because they're afraid of rejection. And it's interesting because men always get rejected for the most part.
I will agree.
So now that the tables have started to turn, right, it's always like, okay, you're not going to get that much rejection for most cases, because unfortunately there are a lot of men that, for lack of better words, are rather thirsty in most cases, right? No,
my darling. So, not my experiences. I know the few men that I have approached, and yes, it is. Since the tables have turned, it is, how can I say, interesting. Because I don't like rejection either.
But it's all part of life.
I know.
And men have had to deal with it for years.
I know, and I understand that now. I understand that. I guess I have a little bit more empathy, but it's just when you guys keep like, if you say no and y'all keep hounding us, that's where I'll get pissed off real quick. Like, dude, I just said no.
Could that be the belief that you're supposed to chase? I don't believe in chasing, right? But again, generation ways, some men would have probably been given that information where, okay, she says no, you just have to keep on because you could wear her down, right? And some people probably have gotten success with that. So I think that is probably the reason why.
Yeah. No, I understand that, but if we just met and you tell me, hey queen, whatever, I like to get to know you, and say, no, I'm good, thank you. And you keep like, but you find everything, okay, yeah, I know I'm fine, but leave me the hell alone. What do you want? And then, but why you gotta act like that for? Because I can't, leave me the hell alone.
Okay, fair. That's
you
fair.
Get me.
That is fair.
You can't tell me how to act. You get me. Anywho, don't get me started. Anywho, so that's, for me, that's the only problem I have. If I say no, leave me alone, just leave me alone. After the second time, third time, I'm
yeah, definitely a third time. I totally agree.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
But in Africa, I don't get that. It's always through a connection, a true mutual connection with somebody. Yeah. So
here, being here for the time that you've been,
no one hits me.
But could that be intimidation? Could that be that you are intimidating? I know that is a bad thing. I'm just saying that, because I find that when someone has certain things together, or look like they have certain things together, it's like, oh shoot, I can't approach.
I used to think that way too, but no, I think that I just fed up.
That is partially true.
I know.
but,
I honestly think that is the major reason. I think they are fed up.
that is partially true. But yeah, I mean, okay.
No, I used to think that, like I said, but now.
I had a cousin. She moved to Canada, and I remember she said to me, "Men here are so different," and I was like, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Well, they don't approach you. They don't say anything to you." So I was like, because probably they're on their business, right? And if you want them, and which is fair, I always say it that way. If you're interested in someone, then you let me know. You don't gotta jump out the window and be like, "Hey, you gotta date me." You know what I'm saying? But just hey, I think you cool. Whatever the case would be, could we go once? Or even just be in a friendly group and see how the person reacts and different stuff like that. So I think that was a culture shock to her.
But you know what I realized though, in dating men here in Barbados, they're majority, not all. I know y'all with that PC. Anywho, I find that the great majority are emotionally unavailable. I don't know if it's by choice, but from speaking to male friends and the men that I have dated, it's either due to some past trauma that they themselves have not been able to get over.
Yeah, as you mentioned, a lot of guys are probably frustrated, and as well as a lot of people don't recognize certain traumas that they have, and it's difficult sometimes for some people to probably face them.
And I think for men in particular, I think a lot of men have a disadvantage, and a lot of women gonna hate me for this, but I don't care. I think a lot of men have been very disadvantaged when it comes to having that support system.
Yeah, I actually was
y'all don't really have that support system, especially amongst each other. I'm starting to see that change, though.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see that change, and I'm happy to see that. But I think if men knew or taught how to handle their trauma, opposed to when from the time they're a little boy, they crying, "Oh, man up!"
Right.
A 5-year-old can't man up. What you talking about? You know what I mean? And that really taught me a lot.